Alright guys, so now we are back with the showdown between the dwarves, who shall be led by Grandpa Gromby, and the vampire counts, who shall be helmed by a blood dragon vampire lord. So as far as the army goes, we're going to be going with a pretty traditional tank and spank, or I would say the pure definition of tank and spank. Here in the front line for the tanking, we do have two groups of the Ironbreakers. One, of course, is going to be the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, the legendary warriors themselves. These guys pretty much hold to the bitter end. So if you are going to be looking for someone to hold your front line, these guys are your troop. They have 86 melee defense, 125 armor, and somehow they have 108 leadership, which just make them unbreakable already. But these guys are so damn good at holding the line. And for the spanking, we do have the Peak Gate Guard here in the middle, which are very good at spanking by dwarf standards. These guys do have 54 melee attack. They also do magic damage, so if there are any ghostly units, maybe a sneaky banshee in there trying to assassinate your characters or your lords, these guys are going to be able to deal with that. And yeah, they have just massive weapon damage and, pretty tanky in their own right. They have 100 armor, 46 melee defense. It's going to be tough to kill them, especially with the support of the runesmiths and their but their damage resist ability. So the other spanking is going to be one more group of the standard hammers, and I also felt like if you're going to be going with an elite build that's going to be very tightly packed, you might as well bring the Grumbling Guard. These guys have really good stats, 51 melee defense, and on top of that, they have a really sweet aura, the Old Grumblers. So this affects allies within a 40-meter range, and it's going to be giving them 9% vigor. So if the battle is really long and grindy, and oftentimes it will be against the vampire counts, it's going to make your troops a little bit more sustainable than the vampire counts. So I like that quite a bit, and they're immune to psychology as well, and I think Ironbreakers are they immune to psychology? No, they have charged defense or expert and magic resist, but they're not. That's interesting. The Peak Gate Guard are immune to psychology, and it looks like Norgrimlings are. So most of my army is going to be immune to psychology. So if there's like a Black Coach or something else, and for the most part, these guys probably will hold regardless of being rear charged or attacked by the Black Coach. So you do need some answers against large targets. So since you're going to be forsaking the very meta and typical gun line, which you use to take out Vargulfs and monsters and Black Coaches and things like that, you do need to bring a couple elite kind of anti-large troops. So we do have the Giant Slayers over here, and then we do also have the Dragonback Slayers, which is pretty essential. Now, there's also going to be another nice synergy here. So these guys would have a little bit of trouble keeping up with the Black Coach or other large threats. So mixing in Grandpa Gromby is actually not a bad choice, and it's so much more fun than the Rune Lord. I'm so sick of using a Rune Lord, but unfortunately it's just so good. But here we do have the Flash Bomb. So the Flash Bomb is a pretty good ability, probably one of the best abilities on the Dwarf roster, aside from the ones that the Rune Lords have. It does slow nearby enemy units by 30 or 76% speed and lowers their melee defense. So if a Black Coach comes in, you have some Slayers nearby or any other large threat, you can pop this. It's going to make him very slow, and from there your melee dwarves should be able to cut him to pieces or at least do some damage. So a very elite dwarven army. We're tired of sitting behind our walls with our guns. We're going out. We're going to go fight the vampire counts with our hammers and our axes, and we're just getting down and dirty. And I love the way Ironbreakers look. They're such a cool looking unit, especially when you start reading the Dwarf Omnibus, which is the Masters of Stone and Steel. You get to like read some passages about like Ironbreakers and elite dwarven infantry like fighting Skaven in these like tunnels, and they're just like in this heavy armor. It's really, really badass. So that's pretty much my force, and we do have two Rune Lords or Rune Smiths as well. Both have the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and then also the Master Rune of Negation, or the Standard Rune of Negation. It's not the Master one, but it's going to be giving even more damage resist to Ironbreakers and elite armored troops, so it should be pretty good. And also, I feel like this build's going to be pretty strong against vampire counts, and there's not too many matchups in which elite dwarves do work, but if there is one in which I think it's relatively viable, it's probably the vampire counts, because they're going to be expecting you to go with a gun line, to go wide. I mean, that's pretty much the standard, only competitive build for the dwarves, and as such, they're going to build for it, right? They're going to bring things like Fellbats and Direwolves, all of which will be wasted money against this build. On top of that, they're going to bring probably a bunch of chaff units to try and tar pit you and swarm you, and maybe a couple Graveguard with great weapons, but even still, your hammers plus the runes should be able to work on those guys. So for my opponent's build, he's got some zombies and skeletons and chaff in the front line, a sneaky banshee, which I've seen people bring to actually go after runesmiths and rune lords, because if you don't have like someone like Grombrindle, who actually does magic damage himself, it's going to be a little bit tough to kill a banshee. But he does also have the Blood Dragon Vampire Lord on foot, which is also pretty common. A corpse cart here in the back. He does have Sternsman, 2 Graveguard with great weapons, and no, actually it looks like he has more. He has 3 of them. So yeah, he's got a lot of AP, 2 Black Coaches as well. Chariots are always pretty good against dwarves, so this is going to be my opponent's biggest tool this game. The Black Coach definitely needs to do some work, otherwise he's going to be in some serious trouble in the front line. So the first volley of the blasting charges will be going down here in a moment, going to be targeting skeletons and some of these squishier troops. And here it comes. So the blasting charge is going down, going to be roasting these skeletons, doing huge work against these guys. Quite happy about this. I love blasting charges. So the skeletons there just getting shreked pretty bad, down to half health basically. So getting rid of 150 gold instantly with one volley, definitely can't complain about that. The hammers are going to be scooting up. In the back, the Fellbats and the dogs are going to be attacking these Slayers, which is a good choice. Slayers are lightly armored, so at least Fellbats are going to be able to do some damage to them, but the Slayers are going to cut them to pieces very, very quickly. But I like that play by my opponent. I think it was quite solid. Grumbling Guard are going to be rushing in to intercept as well. And the rune magic is being dropped. The Helm of Discord in the middle, sending those annoying notifications. It's also going to be debuffing the Peak Gate Guard, who are putting a bit of a hurt on this formation here. And yeah, you can see the Fellbats and the Dogs all pretty much wasted right now. And a Winds of Death is going to be going down. So a good Winds of Death cast from my opponent. It could potentially just wreck my Giant Slayers and some of these Hammers here. But I do see it coming, and this is the reason why Winds of Death isn't the best spell. It still does quite a bit of damage to the Hammers, but it actually did some to his own troops as well. But I was able to dodge it with the Giant Slayers. I saw it coming, so we're in pretty good shape in that respect. Now over here on the flank, the Grumbling Guard were able to finish those guys off, and they're of course providing their aura here to the Ironbreakers and the Runesmiths who's fighting, but Gromby is not having this Banshee shit. He just karate chopped that Banshee in a couple hits because of course he does magic damage. She's ethereal, so she's very squishy against magic damage. And Gromby just doing the work of the Dwarven Gods. It's just beautiful stuff right there. And here in the back, you can see I'm going to be piling in with my other elite troops. The Grumbling Guard going to be supporting the relatively beleaguered Peak Gate Guard, but with the Rune of Negation, they're 110 armor. These elite dwarves are just going to be hammering through these guys. It's just beautiful stuff. And the Corpse Guard's going to be getting in as well, but for the most part, we've secured our positions. The Giant Slayers, I couldn't really catch the Corpse Guard, not Corpse Guard, but the Black Coach. My opponent was just doing circles around, so I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to kind of like flank here on top of these Graveguard with great weapons. That's what's really cool about Giant Slayers. They have amazing AP themselves, and you can actually see they're chopping through these Graveguard incredibly quick. So probably going to put those guys down in a matter of moments here. So Nordglumling's Ironbreakers have taken a little bit of damage against Eastern. It's been pretty much a wet noodle contest here. But the Rune of Wrath and Ruin is really going to be helping. Some Hammers have piled in as well. And you can see the Black Coaches are really doing, quite a number on me. I mean, they don't have a ton of kills or any kills in those ones. I'm really surprised, actually. 0 and 0. They've done some HP damage, though. I've been following them throughout the game, but I can't believe they have 0 kills. But just a true testament to the grit and iron of this DWARF force. The Ironbreakers here have 69 models. That's what she said. They're holding pretty firm. Dragonback Slayers are getting a little bit beat up. And if anything in my army is taking a bit of a beating, it's going to be my Slayers because they're kind of entrenched in just sustained combat versus armored foes and other things like this. But Grombrindle has had enough. He's here to settle the grudge. He's going to be going after that Blooddragon Vampire Lord. Grombrindle has watched all of those tournament games where the Blooddragon Vampire Lord has overpowered his DWARF brethren and his fellow Rune Lords, and he's going to be going in and smiting this Blooddragon Vampire Lord. So he gets a brutal blow right there. The Blooddragon Vampire Lord taking a ton of damage from Gromby. Despite the Helm of Discord, he still has 44 melee attack, so he's still getting in there pretty good. And the Dwarf Infantry are able to just lawnmower that front line. So the Graveguard getting melted, Graveguard here getting melted as well. And over here, the Elite Hammers have the Rune of Negation, and that's going to make them so damn tanky, just so beastly. And on Grombrindle as well, I also brought the Rune Helm of Zufbar, which is an item you don't see terribly often, but it gives him an aura that I believe gives like 12 or a pretty substantial amount of leadership to nearby troops. So it's going to make my army even tougher to kill. So the Blooddragon Vampire Lord, using his Witchcraft, was able to heal up using the Invocation of Nehek, but him and Gromby are in a bit of a duel right now. So Gromby, I think, should probably get the upper hand on the Blooddragon Vampire Lord. Granted, he has heart piercing and whatnot, but Gromby has a lot of armor. I believe his base armor is 120. He has been sundered right now by the Blooddragon Vampire Lord, and he's taken some damage back, but Gromby does have some friends nearby. And the Dwarves always have each other's back. They're going to be rushing in, and of course the Skeletons and Graveguard are nowhere to be found. So Gromby's, yeah, he's in a pit fight here, but the Blooddragon Vampire Lord is going to be getting smashed by the Hammers. Over here we have the Ironbreakers and the Dragonback Slayers able to kind of clean up shop, and the Black Coach up to 6 and 8 kills respectively, but honestly they just haven't been able to do too much. The Slayers did an okay job of kind of fending them off, but more so I just kind of pounded out everything else. Now the Black Coaches are simply going to die due to army losses, which is a pretty efficient way to do things, right? Like if you're going with an elite dwarf army, like you're not going to catch stuff. But pretty much every aspect of that engagement was a victory. The Hammers on the far side and the Ironbreakers held to the bitter end. I still have a pretty decent little army here. Of course, the Slayers did take a beating, but yeah, the main infantry line held pretty well. In the middle, it did take some damage. The Grumbling Guard and the Peak Gate Guard really took a beating as well. But Grombrindle has no fear has been popped. The entire dwarf army is unbreakable, and that's going to be all she wrote for the vampire counts. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. That was such a righteous game. It's so fun to be able to go play dwarves and like use something a little bit different than a gun line and actually have some good success, and also not using a Rune Lord. I liked Gromby in that build. He killed the Banshee very quickly. No, normally that would have been very tough, but the Rune Lord, it would have taken a while, and the Banshee could have been sticking on your character. You would have to drag her down or focus her with guns. It would have been tough, right? So Gromby was actually really, really good here. And on top of that, the double Runesmith was able to give me saturated, steady damage on top of the Graveguard. Ironbreakers, 96, 193, 197 on the Peak Gate Guard, 148. Beautiful kills on these elite troops. They perform as they should. Just these elite iron dwarves who can just hold, using the supporting rune magic with the Rune of Negation to kind of keep them tanky, and the Slayers in the back to kind of fend off the other threats. But yeah, that build was so much damn fun. I really had quite a bit of fun with that. And as far as the vampire count build goes, it looks pretty similar to stuff you see, but I think just to make it even more competitive, I think that you just spam Graveguard with great weapons. Let's see. Although against a build like this, I don't know how well that would work. I feel like the Hammers would be able to just kind of grind them out. Granted, if you did have a wide enough line of the Graveguard with great weapons that he could just kind of circle around you and then rear attack your Hammers and, make your Slayers fight Graveguard with great weapons, like especially the Dragonback Slayers, I think I could be in a little bit of trouble. But Obviously, this build seemed more contoured to dealing with miners and dwarf warriors and, you know, a massive gun line. It had bats, it had dogs, it had double black coaches, which are basically like chariots against the dwarves. And I think it would have been pretty good against a traditional gunline build, but I just think against an elite dwarf build, I don't know how good that is going to be. But Grandpa Gromby, just what a beast. Look how insane he looks. He's just such a cool character. And there's actually a really good book in the Masters of Stone and Steel, the Omnibus, if any of you guys are looking to read a story about Grombrindle. Now, he's not the main character, but he appears a couple times in it as kind of this you know, shadowy figure who just comes to rescue the dwarves in their hours of need. But it's the Grudge Bearer. Yeah, it's Grudge Bearer. It's really good. It kind of explains like Grombrindle's backstory, like his origin story, and he appears a couple times in the contemporary era that, you know, it's sort of where Warhammer kind of takes place in, and he just so badass. So that's pretty much it. I like the build quite a bit. Vampire count build was good, more so against a gunline build. And on that note, guys, I'll go ahead and show you a vampire count build that I think would be good against a gunline, as well as maybe a little bit better against something like this. So well played to my opponent, Bierbista, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that Elite Dwarf build. So man, it feels so good playing something different. Like when I was able to pick Gromby and just not like worry about it, it was pretty nice. All right, so here we go. We're gonna be going to vampire counts. And you guys, the police are after me. You can hear them out in the streets there. Been a lot of it going by today. So the Blooddragon Vampire Lord's a pretty good pick on foot. You could even go with Vlad von Karstein, but he does get that armor sundering, which is quite good. So funny. There's like this dog that like howls, like whenever there's like a police siren or an ambulance or anything going by, the dog like howls in sync with it, like behind us. It's like this huge beastly dog. So I would probably go with Invocation on the Heck and Raise Dead. If you're worried about the elite build, you can mix in a Winds of Death. Now my opponent did have it, but his casting angle on it I think was a little bit inefficient. You know, even going with Manfred on foot might not be bad. So let's get these guys, and then we can go here. And then that kind of justifies the Winds of Death because you get the Sword of Unholy Power. So he's going to have tons of Winds of Magic. And you could get like some of this stuff, like a Spirit Leech, maybe just to like get a little bit wild there. But, you know, I was blobbed up at one point in the battle. If he had been a little bit more patient with his Winds of Death and used it in the front line, it could have been pretty devastating for sure. So let's get a bunch of Graveguard with Great Weapons. Honestly, just going super wide with these guys is pretty tough. It's tough for the Dawi to handle. On top of that, you do need to have some backline pressure because you still have to respect the gun line. Obviously, your opponent isn't going to know. I do like the Corpse Guard. I think it's a bit of a distraction. It has, you know, 4,000 HP almost. It's going to, you know, occupy them for quite some time. Get a couple skeletons to go wide, just get around the flanks, cause some problems. And I do like the Black Coach as well. I think the Black Coach can be a decent pick. The double Black Coach can do a lot of work for sure. And, you know, that was one of the things that was kind of poking down and forcing me to stress out a little bit and whatnot. So from there, we can mix in some Direwolves to go after Rangers, just backline disruption. And I think something like this could be a little bit better. I don't think you need the Banshee. The Banshee's okay, but even just going with like, you could go with a standard White King. He's like pretty grindy, and like they're really cheap actually. So what, you cut 2 skeletons, you get another standard White King. Do you want to do that? The Graveguard with Great Opens are pretty essential. Those things are just like a nuisance. Like they're tough to grind down. You can focus them with guns and whatnot, but if you have the dogs and the Corpse Guard and the White King just have that bonus for infantry. I've seen him work pretty well in a couple replays, but let's just go for like, you know, more traditional, you know, style play here. The Stern Spin are pretty good, but I think we're just going to try and optimize our armor piercing. I think that's going to be a little bit more important here, and could even go with like just a Haggard Corpse Guard. But the 2 Black Coaches I like. I wouldn't go with any Monsters play because Slayers and Guns are going to be too effective at taking them apart. You could go with Black Knights. Black Knights are okay, but even still, against, I just don't think it's going to be like that great. So let's see. Do we want any of these guys? Karen Race is going to get punished by Runes of Wrath and Ruin. Yeah, you could even get like one of these guys and just strip him down. I think that could be okay. Just on foot, honestly, he's going to be pretty grindy as a bonus for his infantry. I think a build like this could work pretty well, especially with Manfredo just going crazy. So well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Elite Dwarf build, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.